The cartels. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Giri Varadari Gopijana Vallabha Giri Varadari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari So tonight we'll read from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 6, which is entitled Dhyana Yoga, and we'll be reading from text number 7. So if everybody could please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chapter 6, text 7. Chitatmana prashantasya Paramātmā samahitaha shitoshna sukadukeshu tatamana pamanayoho. Translation. For one who has conquered the mind, the Supersoul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man's happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. Purport. Actually, every living entity is intended to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart as Paramātmā. When the mind is misled by the external illusory energy, one becomes entangled in material activities. Therefore, as soon as one's mind is controlled through one of the yoga systems, one should be considered to have already reached the destination. One has to abide by superior dictation. When one's mind is fixed on the superior nature, he has no alternative but to follow the dictation of the Supreme. The mind must admit some superior dictation and follow it. The effect of controlling the mind is that one automatically follows the dictation of the Paramātmā, or Supersoul. Because this transcendental position is at once achieved by one who is in Krishna consciousness, the devotee of the Lord is unaffected by the dualities of material existence, namely distress and happiness, cold and heat, etc. This state is practical samādhi, or absorption in the Supreme. Om Jnanativadandasya Ganadhyalakaya Chakshulanamaditamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Kaditavachalam Pangam Langai Tegrim Yak Kripatamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinitarinam Vancha Kopatribishta Kripasindabevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'll read the translation again. For one who has conquered the mind, the Supersoul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. So the Bhagavad Gita, as it is, the particular book where we just read from right now, it is Krishna's teaching to Arjuna, and it is meant for the enlightenment of all people. Sometimes people think that Bhagavad Gita is just meant for the Hindus or the Indians, right, living in India, who have the sense of Krishna or Krishna consciousness. But knowledge in general is meant for everyone. It's not like there's American math or Indian math, or math is math. So the idea is that the knowledge in the Bhagavad Gita is for everyone. And Krishna starts out the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita explaining in the second chapter that we are not our physical bodies. We're the soul. Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tata dehantara praptiriras tatra namuyati. That the soul is transmigrating from boyhood or childhood to youth to old age. Similarly, the soul transmigrates into another body at the time of death, the principle of reincarnation. So it means the soul is there in the body, and the soul's transmigrating in the sense that the body is changing, right? Boyhood, youth, old age. And then the last change of the body is death, and the soul goes to another body. And a sober person is not bewildered by such a change, not disturbed. So Krishna explains that we're the soul. And he also explains that there's the body, the physical body, and there's the subtle body consisting of the mind, the intelligence, false ego or false sense of self. And also in this picture that Krishna is drawing, there's also he's also there, the Supersoul. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishta. He's guiding everyone. Smritir jnanam upohanam cha. He's giving knowledge, forgetfulness. He's there residing in our heart. Means the soul and then the Supersoul. So here in this particular verse that we read today, it says, for one who has conquered the mind, the Supersoul is already reached. So Krishna is explaining in the Bhagavad Gita that there is a need for those souls who are in human bodies to understand the necessity of controlling their mind and actually controlling their mind. Because one thing is to understand it and the next is to execute. So that, in other words, there's a difference between the soul and the mind, or us and the mind. And sometimes people's minds, they get them into trouble. Means when the mind becomes overwhelmed with, for example, hatred or anger, then one will do all types of criminal things and go to jail. So the idea is that all of these inclinations, or you could say these materialistic inclinations that actually get us into big or small trouble, they're all residing in the mind. Therefore, there's a need to control it. In other words, there's a need to check it. Check certain desires of the mind. There's a verse, Kama Dinam Katina Katita Palita Durinideshas. There's a verse, and it describes how this one particular devotee of Krishna is praying. And he's praying that in so many ways I have tried to fulfill the desires, wicked desires of my mind. But they've brought me no happiness. So, like lust or selfishness, greed, anger, all these different inclinations that are residing in the mind, he's followed the whims of them and still not satisfied. One of our past teachers, he quotes there's a quote of his within another commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, and he says, speaking from a man's perspective, but he says, but the principle's there for everyone. But he says that if a man was to obtain all the wealth in the world, all the grains in the world, means all the food, and all the women of the world, still he wouldn't be happy, wouldn't be satisfied. So if all of the wealth, grains, women, if everything was his, still he wouldn't be satisfied. In recent times, there was a man, at least at a particular point, he was one of the wealthiest men in the world. And they asked him a question, because, they interview these all types of famous people, celebrities, wealthy people, and people want to know what these different individuals are thinking about, so they interview them. So they asked this man, can you tell me your philosophy in one word? And again, you have to note that this, he was one of the wealthiest men in the world. So tell me your philosophy in one word. And then the man said, yes, I'll tell you. And then he said, this is my philosophy in one word. And he said, more. Means that he's managed to stack up quite a lot, in his bank balance, and very wealthy. But more, that's his philosophy. He wants more. He's not satisfied. Now, at one point, it just becomes numbers, and you can't even really. They have a hard time spending, anyways. But so that was one question they asked him. Another question they asked him, they said, "What do you think of on your free time?" Because we all think of certain things on our free time. We have some free time, and we We have thoughts and we think of things. So they asked him, what do you think of on your free time? And then he said, very interesting actually, he said, I think about how to pay the bills. Can you imagine that? So wealthy. He said, I think about how to pay the bills. So if you think about it, or if we think about it, the guy's problems wasn't the general problems he had when he wasn't so wealthy weren't solved. Means he was still in the same mindset. He was thinking, when he wasn't wealthy, he was thinking, okay, more, I need more. Then when he became wealthy, he's thinking more. So that burning desire for more never left him. And then when he was on his free time, he's thinking about paying the bills. Now, that's what people do who are struggling and having a hard time paying. They're thinking about how to pay the bills. So he was in the same mindset, means he was just paying bigger bills, you know, trying to buy this company out, that company out. So the problems weren't solved. So if one doesn't control their mind, if one doesn't learn how to control their mind, as Krishna is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, one will be harassed, actually, by those burning desires within the mind, which don't go away. They don't. It's not like, okay, I'm 20 years old and the burning desires will go away when I'm 30 or 40 or 50. They just don't go away. They'll never go away. It's not like it's some, you know, you snap your fingers or you wave a magic wand or something and they disappear. So in other words, there's a whole science how to control our mind. Means how to not be engulfed by harmful desires, big or small. So the art of desiring, that's the idea. So for such a person, in that particular way of controlling the mind and the senses, is to engage them in Krishna's service, engage them in Krishna consciousness. That's the way to control the mind and the senses. Just like if we have just like if we're watching a child, we may have, I know many of here have children, or have maybe watched children, but if a child picks up a sharp pair of scissors, and then you go up to the child and you say, hey, give me the scissors. They may not be very happy about that. But if you say, okay, give me the scissors, and I'll give you some candy, I'll give you a cookie or something. Here, take a cookie, give me the scissors. And I say, okay, here, take the scissors. And so it's not that we are telling them, okay, just stop all, I'm going to take the scissors from you and just stop all activity. But we take what is harmful from them and give them something better. That's the idea. So the mind has desires, the senses have desires. We have to engage our mind and senses. We cannot be non-engaged. So the idea is to engage our mind and senses in positive Krishna consciousness. And the main way of engaging our mind, or learning how to control our mind and senses in this particular age, is the chanting of Hare Krishna. That's what we were just doing. Recently we celebrated Janmashtami, or Krishna's appearance in this world. That was Friday. And Krishna comes millennium after millennium to establish the principles of religion, to help us. So he appeared 5,000 years ago. But just recently, 500 years ago, he appeared also. In West Bengal as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the land of India. So he came again. And this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance and him being accepted as Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his appearance is predicted in ancient Vedic scriptures. Even if people accept them to be 2,000 years or however long, 3,000, still Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared 500 years ago. So the predictions are still accurate, because some academic people may not accept them to be 5,000 years, but whatever people accept them to be, they're still accurate. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna come again 500 years ago, is predicted in Bhagavad Purana, the book coming after Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, anyways, many other scriptures. So, and he came to spread the chanting of Hare Krishna, what we're just doing. So this chanting is the sure, it's the sure method of not just controlling our mind and our senses and giving our mind and our senses better engagement, but it actually is the process for God realization, self-realization within this age, which makes sense because there could be other processes of self-realization, like, for example, it explains in these spiritual texts that in previous ages, means long ago, there were different processes of realization, such as meditation, means silent meditation, or such as elaborate deity worship. And now what is deity worship? It's, if we look to our left or to our right, we'll see an altar there, and you'll see forms of Krishna. And the idea is that Krishna appears to us. We can't see him with our material eyes, so he appears in the form of a deity. So to accept our worship. So this deity worship was actually a form of the main process of self-realization in previous age. Same with that meditation, and they have such a thing as fire sacrifices, burning this fire and chanting so many mantras. And for so many reasons, these other processes are not the main process for this age. We have limited time, right? We're very busy, so many things, so many engagements. How much time do we have? So the chanting is simple but sublime, simple and sublime method, easy, for God realization in this age. And the benefit of, again, the benefit of controlling our mind and our senses is that we will become connected with the absolute truth. When our mind and senses are all over the place, how are we to be connected with Krishna? Krishna is here, and then everything else is everywhere else. So if our mind is all over, if our senses are all over, how are we to be connected to Krishna? So that's one benefit. And another benefit is that we rise beyond the dualities of this world. Happiness, distress. A lot of bikers. I think there's like 5 bikes that went by already. Very enthusiastic bikers around here. Sometimes they like to pop wheelies on the freeway, and I can't believe it. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but you're driving on the freeway 70 miles an hour. These guys are standing on their bikes going 70 miles an hour. I just, unbelievable. Yeah, that's true, and it doesn't always end well. Nothing against motorcycle, but I don't think you do things like that. That's a little bit too much. But so yeah, and it's very, I mean, because someone says, oh, who cares about being above the dualities of this world? Well, it's actually very helpful because if we don't learn how to be above the dualities of this world, I mean, it could be a very disturbing place, actually. You know, it's too hot, too cold, somebody offended me, somebody didn't treat me right, this, that. So many things to be disturbed about, actually. Just, I mean, even if our lives were going great, according to our estimation, I mean, we could just sit on our computer or look at our phone and see what's going on in the world in terms of news. I mean, that could be disturbing, you know. So to rise beyond the dualities, of course, it doesn't mean we're heartless and we feel no emotions, but it means that we're able to not lose our God consciousness, not lose our Krishna consciousness, not lose sight of our actual goal while being in this world and having to deal with the dualities. So this is a benefit of controlling our mind and senses. When the mind is, so this is a sentence in the purport, when the mind is misled by the external illusory energy, one becomes entangled in material activities. So the philosophy of Krishna consciousness explains, within the books, it explains that there is such an energy called Maya, or illusion. And it's an energy that is immediately there when one willingly, or for any reason, whatever the reason, if one forgets God, one forgets Krishna, then who's there? The illusory energy, or Maya. And this illusory energy says it has two functions. It covers a person's knowledge, and it throws a person down into illusion or into darkness. And what does it mean? It covers a person and throws them down. It means even if someone may be in a very deplorable state, they still think, oh, I'm very happy. Like somebody may be, I mean, it's very unfortunate, but they may be addicted to so many different drugs, and they've been rejected by their friends and their family, and they've lost all their money, a deplorable state. But still, under this delusion, under this Maya, they think, oh, I'm very happy. There's a story of Indra, which he's a powerful personality in this universe, a demigod. So he was cursed one time. I mean, he's cursed to become a hog in this material world. And it's interesting because one of his peers came to him and he said, Indra, you got to get back. You know, we need you. Things are kind of falling apart without you, right? Because he's a big leader, right? So, but interesting, Indra was thinking, hey, kind of having a good time here, right? I'm enjoying. They have a saying, right? Hog heaven. I'm having a good time. Like when you walk around Vrindavan, it gets very hot in Vrindavan, India. It's very hot. And practically, I mean, talk about being free from the dualities. That's something hard to tolerate. But you see these hogs there running around. And I remember I was walking around anyways, those who know, it's a holy place called Govardhan. So it's a mountain there. We were walking around. It's a sacred place there. And all of a sudden we're walking. I was walking with Mahat Tattva Prabhu and other brahmacharis, other temple residents on a trip in India. And we look to our left and we see this hog. And the hog is just like soaking in some filthy whatever, water and, so whatever, just pond of it. He's just, kind of cooling off, So Mahat Tattva Prabhu is a photographer, so he snapped some photos of the hog. But I mean, to be Indra, and then to come down to such a state like that, so that's Maya, though. Maya covers and then throws down. But the idea is that if we turn toward Krishna, then we turn our back towards Maya, the illusory energy, and we turn towards Krishna, then that is the process of having the knowledge that's actually there within us. Means Krishna consciousness is within us. That will awaken if we turn toward Krishna. But under Maya, then what happens? Entangled in material activities. Now, a common question comes up. What's material and what's spiritual? Are my activities material or are my activities spiritual? So how are we to know that? What's spiritual, what's material? Just because one is working for money, right? You have to work. If one works in a mindset of Krishna consciousness or remembering Krishna, thinking about Krishna, then that work could be spiritualized. Or someone will say, eating, right? Is that material or is that spiritual? Well, it could be a very entangling activity, right? There's so many things. Entangling means, for example, like Buddha, Lord Buddha came to teach non-violence. So to have a diet which is non-violent, the most non-violent diet is the best. But it could be entangling because having a non-violent diet, having a violent diet means entanglement in karma, action, reaction, laws of nature. If we cause suffering, we have to suffer. But food, eating of food can be spiritual, in the sense that Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhakta priyachati. Krishna says that if one offers to me with love and devotion a fruit, a flower, a leaf, I will accept it. So Krishna accepts it, and then afterwards we accept it. And that's prasad, or the mercy of Krishna, and in which this is spiritualized. So practically everything we could do, not everything, but practically everything can be spiritualized and connected to Krishna. So it's not that one has to run off to the Himalayas or have to join a temple to spiritualize their activities, but it's just a matter of changing the consciousness. That's the idea. So just a few more things here. Well, actually, if there's any questions or comments at this point, feel free. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. I don't know. Okay, there's a mic.
If no one else has a question. All right. But my mind is very turbulent. And sometimes it just takes over. You know, I think later on, why did I do that? Or what was I thinking? They have passion killings, you know. People think, what happened? I was overwhelmed. So how do I control that? What do I do about it?
Okay. Thank you. Well, first, there's when we go to the doctor, a lot of times people they go to the doctor when they think something's wrong, right? That's generally people go to the doctor when they think something's wrong, or the dentist or something. Anyways, some people go more often, but when we go to the doctor or a doctor, the first step is diagnosing the disease. What is the disease, right? Oh, is your liver weak? Etc. Right? Different. What's the problem? And then through usually different methods, right? Maybe more traditional methods. They'll check your pulse, right? Ayurvedic doctor, then they could determine what's wrong, or in Western medicine they'll take your blood or whatever it is. So they're trying to figure out by testing, asking questions, what is wrong? So then they'll tell you, okay, we figured out this is what's wrong. This is the disease. So then the next question is, okay, well, what's the medicine, right? How do I get cured? So the first step, at least in this regard, is to understand by self-reflection, by honest, self-reflection, maybe by talking with others. But generally, if we're honest, we could understand. Okay, or if we're having a hard time understanding, we could, go to a devotee, you could say like a spiritual doctor, and ask, okay, what is my disease? What's going on? I'm having a hard time finding that out myself. So whether we could find it out ourselves or through others, the first step is to understand what's the problem. So then, understanding what the problem is, to accept a process that will cure us. So if the question was that, okay, sometimes my mind, gets the best of me. I do something that I regret later. How do I overcome that? And Srila Prabhupada founder of the Hare Krishna movement, to the left of me, he would say that the medicine is chanting of Hare Krishna. One time in San Francisco, a very wild place, especially in the 60s and 70s, the hippie era. If you read in Srila Prabhupada's biography, it was like she was dealing with some really wild characters there. So one person in the class, they raised their hand and they said, "Swamiji, my mind, it's causing me so much trouble. What can I do? What should I do?" And then Srila Prabhupada said, "Please chant Hare Krishna." And the man kept on saying that. My mind, my mind, my mind. So then Srila Prabhupada said, this is my answer. This is the medicine. This is the only medicine. Please just chant Hare Krishna. So the chanting of Hare Krishna and all the other devotional activities that are performed in Krishna, there's so many things we could do for Krishna, that will cure our mind. And then he said, okay, well, what about the diet? Because generally if somebody's, right, disease, there's medicine, and then there's a diet, whether people like it or not, right? The diet. It's like the diet or the medicine, bitter medicine, whatever. So he said that the diet is Krishna prasadam, or food offered to Krishna. So that's the diet. The diet is food offered to Krishna, and the medicine is chanting Hare Krishna, engaging in the activities of Krishna consciousness. And gradually, one will be able to have more and more and more control over their mind and senses. Not overnight, but gradually. And of course, it could be faster or sooner depending on our seriousness and following. But just like in relation to this, getting better, there was one person. He was a missionary, and he was out of the Hare Krishna movement, and he was out on the streets passing out Srila Prabhupada's books, Bhagavad Gita, other books. He was trying to help people by that, which is still going on throughout the world, this book distribution. So he's out there distributing books, and some man came up to him and started yelling at him and giving him a hard time, and the devotee who was distributing books got really angry, and he started yelling back, and right, there was a bit of a fight going on. So the man, the civilian, he said to the devotee, he said, I thought you're supposed to be spiritual. What? You're losing your temper. You're getting angry with me. You don't have control of your anger? And then the devotee said, well, to tell you the truth, I started chanting Hare Krishna, and it's helped me a lot. And the proof of this is that before, in the past, if you would have yelled at me like that, I would have punched you. But he didn't. He just...
It's all how you measure, right?
Yeah, it's how you measure, right? Now, of course, there's more advancement to be made than that, but there's gradual progress. And if one fails, then that's in many ways normal and natural to fail. But as the famous saying going, as Srila Prabhupada quoted, actually, he said, failure is the pillar to success. Means that an interesting thing about failing is you know exactly what doesn't work. And if you failed many times in different ways, you know exactly what doesn't work in many ways. So in that way, it's a learning process, failure. Whereas Srila Prabhupada would say that if a young child is learning how to walk and they fall down, and in other words, their walking is not perfect, hurt themselves, it's not that the parents say, all right, just, you're not really doing too good at this, just give up, just stop walking. They don't say that. They can encourage to continue. So there will be gradual progress, and just two more last things about that. Sometimes we wonder about others, maybe our family, maybe our friends, maybe ourselves. Are these people making any spiritual progress? Am I making any spiritual progress? And sometimes it could be discouraging because you think, okay, well, what's the use? So there's one story in this relation that there was a man, he's very sick, and he actually, whatever he ate, he couldn't hold it in his stomach. He would vomit everything. So then they went to an Ayurvedic doctor and they said, what are we supposed to do with this person? And the Ayurvedic doctor said, you should give this man a nice spoonful of ghee every day. means clarified butter. It's like a thick, every day. And then the person who's taking care of him is like, what is that going to do? He's going to vomit. I mean, what's the point? And the doctor said, just do it. So then the caretaker was giving this man a little ghee every day, and the man was surely enough vomiting everything. But gradually the man got better until he regained health. And what's the explanation behind that? The explanation is that, yes, he wasn't able to retain practically most of it, but whatever he did retain was nourishing him. And he gradually got better. So that's the idea. That we may wonder about others, we may wonder about ourselves, what am I retaining? But even if we're just retaining a little, gradually become more nurtured. There's a story that people tell often in relation to controlling the mind, and the story is that, it's told in different ways, but there's a person, and they were at a wedding, and they had these nice fried items at the wedding. And it was kachoris. Those who were here yesterday, Saturday, they made kachoris, which are this bready fried item. Sometimes they put potatoes or peas or coconut something, right? And generally it's a crowd pleaser. People are very attracted to it. So anyways, there's this man at the wedding. He was thinking, wow, kachoris. I don't see those very often, so let me have some. So he had 1 and 2 and 3, and he kept on going. The tongue was demanding. This is what we're talking about, right? The tongue or the mind. The mind's demanding, right? Give me more, give me more. And there was all this logical, intellectual pushings to, hey, come on, when do you ever see these kachoris? And, when's the last time you saw them? What, 6 months ago, a year ago? You gotta fill up on these, right? So he did that. And he was feeling very happy, right? Satisfied. But then fast forward in nighttime, he's trying to sleep. And he has a stomach ache and suffering and struggling and sick, right? And then the same mind that they're looking for somebody. The same mind that was encouraging him and pushing him. Hey, just have a few more, have a few more. The same mind was saying, "Oh, you fool! Why did you take so much?" So one person was telling me that he used to have this problem at the Sunday feast. Well, because we'll have a Sunday feast soon. Serve dinner. So when he was a young man, he actually joined the temple, and every Sunday he would have a large plate, like a really big plate of dinner. And then every night he'd be laying in his bunk bed, and he would say, "Never again, never again. I'm never going to do this again." And then next Sunday would come, and he would do the same thing, and he'd be laying on the bed, "Never again, never again." It's like, kept on saying that. So sometimes we see this happens, but I could attest that now he doesn't do that. Dravida Prabhu tells, it's his own story, but he tells it publicly, so it was Dravida Prabhu. He doesn't mind me telling, he tells it publicly, but he doesn't do that now, obviously. So in other words, what one may struggle with can easily go away, almost magically, by just following, and it will gradually happen. Like the rising of the sun, right? It doesn't just, it's not like we're sitting and it's dark and all of a sudden the sun just shoots up and it's light. It's gradual. The sun is rising gradually. And no matter what somebody says or do, they can't force the sun to come up. So similarly, in terms of spiritual advancement and so on, it's gradual. The sun's rising. There's a very long answer. Does anybody have any other? Yes. You could pass the mic, please.
Hare Krishna. With the analogy you just gave, so I was thinking that the soul suffers when we do things that are not beneficial for us. And like you were saying, if you eat too much, or what is the name of that?
Kachori.
Yeah. So you will have consequences, right?
Yes.
So the soul is suffering, and then you feel this intensity, anxiety, and not at peace. And then you're asking why? So the soul is talking to us and telling us what's going on. So until we don't stop and listen, which is to our intuition and what Krishna is telling us, and then it will continue on and on and on.
Yeah, we have to listen. The conscience, right? They say that this conscience is actually Krishna, good voice, right? Trying to give us good advice. Actually, the Supersoul within our heart is always trying to give us good advice. But sometimes we just don't listen. And actually, that's what this verse is talking about, that if we control our mind and our senses, then we'll actually be able to follow the dictations of Krishna. Of course, the main dictations are the Bhagavad Gita. So if we get some Krishna dictation in our mind, if it's not in line with the Bhagavad Gita, then it's not a Krishna dictation, it is something else. Maya, illusion, urge from the illusory energy. So yeah, so we have to listen, try to listen to Krishna. And of course, Krishna speaking the Bhagavad Gita. So sometimes people want to know, what does Krishna want to tell me? Well, it's right here in the Bhagavad Gita and other books. You have something, Soul? Oh, I don't know. You're just holding the mic. Sorry, I thought you grabbed the mic from her. All right, is there any last? Yes, sir. Okay, I'll repeat your question or comment.
So there's some challenges that I see facing myself. It's like you have like some friends or some parents and things that are like really kind of like almost like you're fighting against a current for something that's something so nice and so pleasant, but it's shrouded in mysteries and things of this. And it's not like you can just bring someone here and just have like this easy way about it. It's more challenging than that, and so you're just constantly like going against the current, I feel like, and then you come here and it's just so nice. It's like kind of like, how do you just kind of navigate that current, I guess.
All right, thank you. So he's saying that it's very nice coming to the Hare Krishna temple and dealing with family, friends, and others. Sometimes it's like going against the current, means they're going this way and then we're trying to swim up this way. So that's the beauty of spiritual association, is that, or good company, is that they inspire us in relation to the most important thing that we should be doing, means engaging ourselves in spiritual life. Whereas those who are not spiritually inclined, they inspire us otherwise, which over time, when one becomes more and more serious in their spiritual practice, they actually, not unkindly, but just naturally disassociate. Means they may still associate with certain people, but it's not close or intimate, close association. Or as the famous saying, which maybe we could look this up, who on earth said this? Birds of a feather flock together. Where is that from? We've heard it a million times, but not sure where that's. Shakespeare. Okay, there we go. Birds of a feather flock together. So the swans are hanging out with the swans, the crows are hanging out with the crows. Naturally. It's just natural. So I remember when I was first coming to this temple, I was 17 years old. And I used to come to the Sunday feast, this Sunday feast that we're having now, the festival, I liked it, so I would come every Sunday. And then I joined the temple when I was 18. I've been here for a number of years. But I remember one time I was with my cousin and with my sister, and somehow or other, we got stuck, or I got stuck, I felt. And my sister and my cousin, and I have affection for them and all that, but I just didn't want to be where we were. We were at like this arcade, and I was just like, loud, and and I was just thinking, I really wish I was at the temple. That happened a couple of times, but so in other words, our desire to be with spiritual people will increase. And so yeah, if I was you, I would just visit the temple more. Yeah. But we could discuss more later if you want. Yes. Okay.
Just to encourage you. So Balaram described his course. He was polite. He still loved his family members and everybody else, but he just associated more with the devotees where it was peaceful and happy and he could grow spiritually. Now the interesting thing is that his mother also became a full devotee. And many of his relatives are also now, who were opposed or thought it was a bad idea or he'd lost his mind, now chant Hare Krishna, are becoming vegetarian, and are very proud of their monk, friend, son, and relative. So it has a happy ending, don't worry, it just takes time.
Yes. All right. You have something?
Hare Krishna. I was interested in hearing a little bit about the book you just wrote, what it's about and kind of.
Well, I think Tyler mentioned what it's about. But there's like Prabhupada pastimes, and then I just wrote something in each of those. Pastimes means Srila Prabhupada to my left. He had many interactions with his disciples, with other people, which are very inspiring and encouraging. So, and I've heard him over the years many times. So I just searched different places, and I found 30 of those, and I wrote a reflection on each one. And I asked my spiritual master, His Holiness Giraj Swami, about the idea, and he encouraged me. So I did that. And yeah, it was a way I could, meditate on Srila Prabhupada and try to. So that was the basic idea. And they do that many times in other spiritual groups, like Christian groups. They have so many books. Like they have this book called Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren, a big Christian guy here in America. It's like 40 Bible quotes, and then he writes a reflection on each quote. So it's a similar principle. They do it very often in other traditions. So that's the idea. So, all right. So, did you have a comment? You had a question? Okay. We'll take the last question.
Thank you.
We'll go to the kirtan.
Hare Krishna. I have a question regarding when I cook at home. I found I have a disconnect with food. So I wanted to ask you your suggestions on when I'm cooking at home. I am vegan. I've been vegan for many years. But sometimes I also eat out. So is there a particular way I should be blessing the food?
Blessing the food.
When I eat, before I eat the food.
Okay, well, if you're cooking at home, and is there a particular way? Yeah. Depends on what a person wants to do, but at least what bhakti practitioners do is they have these plates, like we have our own plates. So we have these plates, and we put the food on these particular plates, and we put them in front of a picture of Krishna and Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya, and then we chant prayers, offering the food, ringing a bell, chant prayers, and leave it there for some time, wash the plates, and then it's prasadam. Of course, it has to be offered with love and devotion and cooked in a particular way. So this process is written out, the prayers and how exactly, in one of our books, Science of Self-Realization. So we'll get you that book after tonight, and then you could take it home and could read it and do an experiment. All right. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all.
So yeah, now we'll have kirtan, and then we'll serve dinner at 7:15. So.
And this weekend,